What's up, guys? I'm back, episode 5. I know it's been a while since the last video, but hey, it's the holidays, life's busy. Also, I decided that if I'm gonna be doing this channel thing, I gotta get some real video editing software. iMovie's not cutting it, so I got some Final Cut Pro. Been spending some time learning how to use it, and this is the first video using it, so hopefully it all works out. Anyway, what are we making today? Something refreshing. We're making these super cool water feature cave tiles. Can you guys see? Can you see this? Oh, hold on. These things are super nice looking, maybe even a little too good for game use, but they're really easy to make. I got a super cool, simple trick how to carve them out in such a way that doesn't use very much artificial water, keeping costs really low. Simple paint job, really simple build, very fun, looks good. So yeah, if you guys want to see how we make them, let's go over to the craft table and whip one up. So start off by carving out a cave tile from pink or blue foam. You can see how we do this on episode 1. Trace out the exact shape you want for your water feature. The outline matters as it will be followed exactly in the next step. Grab some clear nail polish and brush it onto the foam surface. This will melt the polystyrene in a really cool way. The melt line won't bleed at all, so it'll give you a nice clean edge, which is why you should draw that shape out exactly as you want it. You can see here that it works really quickly. The nice thing about this method is that it makes a very shallow recess. After the first pass, you might decide that you'd like some of the areas to be deeper. You can go over it again with more nail polish. That'll melt it even further, but you have to do this fairly quickly after the first coat. Once the nail polish has dried, additional coats won't cause the foam to melt any further. After the second pass, the depressions get a bit deeper and the texture gets more extreme. You can do this to suit your style. After a few minutes, the foam gets nice and hard again, but after this point, you won't be able to melt it any further. Once you're happy with the melted area, you can begin to texture the rest of the surface to match your other tiles. I'm using the same method I used in episode 1. Basically, I just covered the entire surface with full strength PVA glue. I also add a few drops inside the water area. Next, shake on your construction sand. I don't go for full coverage, just enough to give it a nice texture. You can see here a few of those larger rocks glued inside the water area. These will look good later. Once everything's dry, prime it out in black. I prefer to paint the water before the rest of the tile, and I start with a dark blue. I put this on fairly wet to make sure that it gets into all the crevices. While that dark blue is still wet, I grab some turquoise and start blending it in. I just go around the edges, avoiding the middle. This will give the illusion of some deeper parts in the middle of the pond. And again, while everything's still wet, I go with some light green and just kind of randomly dab it in around the edges. You'll then want to let this part completely dry out before you move to the next step. Take that same turquoise you used earlier and just start dry brushing in to give everything some highlights. Again, you want to avoid the middle of the pond to keep that illusion of depth. Now you can take some of that same green used earlier, and again, just kind of dab it in randomly around the edges. This will give the pond a bit of a look like it has some algae in it. It'll give the blue some variance, and just really make everything look a little bit more interesting than just blue. After you're happy with your paint on the water area, you can go ahead and paint out the rest of the tile using whatever technique you've used on the rest of your tile system. Here I just cover everything in a dark gray. If you put in any of those stones into the water, make sure you don't forget to hit them with the gray as well. After the first coat of gray is dried, I just dry brush everything with a lighter gray to pick up some highlights. Now the fun part, the artificial water. I use an acrylic kit by a company called Simple Life. You can find it at Walmart in the floral section. It's basically the exact same thing as the stuff they sell at Michael's, but for a fraction of the price. Take equal parts from each bottle and mix them together. For a pond this size, 1 cap of each is about the perfect amount, and that's why I like these shallow pools. It makes your resin go a lot further while still looking good. Once your 2 parts are mixed up, you can carefully pour it into the tile. I find using a soft plastic cup for this gives me enough control over the pour. You want to make sure the entire surface of the pool is covered so you don't end up with any dry spots. And if you need to, you can tilt the tile back and forth a little bit to move the resin into any voids. Once poured, you can have some fun with some extra embellishments. An alternative to gluing in play sand rocks beforehand is just to paint some out and drop them into the resin. I also like to add a bit of plant life to my water. You can do this with small clump foliage. Just put in as much or as little as you want. I actually like to use more than one size of clump foliage and more than one color. This stuff here is a little bit darker and a little bit thicker than the first stuff I put in. For some really nice detail, you can take tiny pieces from those lichen clumps you get at the craft store. I take tiny little veins and very sparingly drop them in to represent some weeds. 3 or 4 little veins will look really awesome. And once you're happy with everything, put the tile aside somewhere safe and let it sit for a solid 48 hours to harden up. You can see just how awesome these look for a very little cost. Also, experiment with different color techniques. I like to do some in all green for a more kind of swampy, algae infested look. That's it for this episode. If you guys liked the tutorial, please give me a like and drop a comment below. If you haven't already done so, please hit subscribe. I've also got a Blackmagic Craft Facebook page where I post progress photos of various things I'm working on. We'll see you again in episode 6. Cheers.